But the important point to remember is all states really truly need to do this if indeed a central bank digital currency is coming down the pike. This will be your option. This will be your lifeboat. Gold and silver, gang. It's what the founding fathers gave us. It's still in the Constitution.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin specials for December 4th through December 11th, 2023, while supplies last. First, we feature Silver Eagles at $4.99 over spot, making this a great time to swap silver bars into Silver Eagles or to purchase Silver Eagles at the lowest premium in years. Next, Constitutional 90% silver is just $3 over spot per ounce. We also have 100-ounce silver bars at $1.45 over spot. And finally, $20 gold Liberty coins in AU condition at just $170 over melt. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We are privileged to have this returning guest. Patrick Holland is the founder of the Missouri Freedom Initiative. He joins us this Thursday, December 7th, 2023. Patrick, thanks for joining us again here on Liberty and Finance.
Dunnigan, it's an honor. Thank you very much for having me back.
You've visited with us a couple of times so far, talking to us about some very important actions that are happening in Missouri. Many of our viewers are familiar with some high-profile court cases regarding a couple that stood their ground regarding the Second Amendment and the right to protect their own castle, etc. And you've also focused with us on sound money and constitutional money protection. Right now is a very momentous time because with the help of Senator Bill Eigel there, who is bringing forth the Missouri Senate bill on the Constitutional Money Act, which I understand you've been in close communication with the senator about. We're going to have him on next week, interviewing here, telling us what he's trying to accomplish with that bill. But I wanted to address with you, if we could today, the phenomenon, and I think it's a very positive one, of states standing up for their people and for freedom and for constitutional liberties in the face of federal overreach. So again, welcome to Liberty and Finance. And could we start off with a update from you on the current status of the Missouri Constitutional Money Act that's just been introduced as a bill this year?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. It's officially filed. In fact, I will send you a link so your viewers can actually go see the bill right on the Senate website. It's Senate Bill 735 this year. So everyone remembers SB 100 from last year. That was easy to remember. It's kind of a fun name for it, 100, nice round number. But it is 735 this year. And it's also, my understanding is, it's going to be filed by 4 different people in the House of Representatives as well. A huge bit of support. I'm not sure that there's ever been the same bill, basically the same bill filed by 4 different people in the House before. So there's a large showing for people in the House for support of this bill. But once again, and if I could tell your viewers, I mean, I really hate to hit the rewind here. But there was one person that stopped the bill in Missouri. It wasn't called the Constitutional Money Act last year. We just called it SB 100. And that was Dean Plocher, the Speaker of the House. So everyone liked it in the Senate. Well, enough people liked it in the Senate to get it through with no problems. And we had more than enough support to get it through in the House. It was just the Speaker of the House that decided not to have it. And we'll go into other reasons for that later. But the House loves the bill, too. Now, I want to throw something else out that's very, very important. I'm in Missouri. I am fighting for Missouri to get this done. Now, and if you want, I can hook you up. But there is Citizens for Sound Money that are really taking up the banner and working with other states to get similar legislation to our Constitutional Money Act done in other states, including Florida. Florida is one of the states, New Hampshire, Texas. I can't remember all the rest of the states they're working in. But they're doing a great job. And like I said, I'll get you some contact information so you can talk with them because they're doing virtually the same thing. But the important point to remember is all states really, truly need to do this if indeed a central bank digital currency is coming down the pike. This will be your option. This will be your lifeboat. Gold and silver, gang. It's what the founding fathers gave us. It's still in the Constitution. And it's still a really good idea. It's, especially gold, for the most part, is kept up with inflation. So we do need that other option. But we'll talk about more details in the bill here as we go along.
So if we could broaden the discussion out to understand how this is part of a large and growing movement of states standing up, not just on sound money topics, but on Second Amendment rights, on a lot of other rights where if bills come out of Washington and arrive as, whether it's say executive orders or whether it's laws or whatever, federal laws at the state, and they are unconstitutional on their face, the state can nullify them. And that you've explained that to us in the past on the 10th Amendment basis. Very important. So I guess we'd like to make sure that we visit that movement and see how people can take advantage of the leadership that's being provided by Missouri and others that really are on the vanguard of this, so that they can make those advances for the good of their people and their own individual states. I guess the background for all of this is growing evidence that just keeps coming, and perhaps even it seems faster and faster in more blatant and obvious ways, that the people in leadership positions at the federal or even international or global levels are making decision after decision and policy after policy that are absolutely not in the best interest of individuals in their states or in the families and the communities in those states. Could you touch on your view of that overall, I would call it a mega trend right now, and that is towards smaller and more local jurisdictions, primarily the states, but also in locales as well, standing up for the good of their people in the face of centralized overreach, whether it's at the national or international level?
Absolutely. That's a really, really good question. And I suspect if you ask this of 100 people, you'll get very similar answers, especially if they do work legislation. And the deal is the Founding Fathers kind of thought of the 50 states as 50 individual countries. I know we all know that, but the fact is the federal government has completely forgotten about this. They are the overlords. They're the ones that literally say, no. The federal government dictates to the states. No. The states dictate to the federal government. That's the way it was set up. We, as states, created the federal government. The federal government did not create the states. States are already there. So, okay, in lieu of what we were talking about with the 10th Amendment, anti-commandeering doctrine, and movements to actually start freeing the states from, basically the shackles of tyranny that are developing from the federal government, and I do mean shackles of tyranny, you have to get involved. It's up to us, literally. And I say this over and over again. I know I'm kicking the dead horse down again, but the federal government doesn't care about folks. They just don't. And there are good folks in D.C., and I sometimes talk to them, but there's not enough of them to make a difference. The swamp is deep and thick over there, gang. So I have taken it upon myself as a computer technician. That's what I am. I have my own business. I work on PCs and networks and telephone systems and security systems. That's what I do. But I've taken it upon myself in all of my free time to fight for the freedom of my state, the state of Missouri, because of, well, for me personally, it really truly started with, I'm a pro-lifer, everyone knows that, but I really, really got involved when I saw the tyranny coming with infringement of the right to bear arms. I really got involved in that because I know I've seen it through history. I'm a history buff, gang. Don't let them take away your guns, ever, for any reason. And one of these days, we should do a specific interview about this in the history of countries that have taken away guns from its citizens, especially when they're showing, let's just say, hints of tyranny. Now, yes, there are some countries that have taken away the guns and they're not especially tyrannical, but I guarantee you those people don't have rights like you and I do right now at this minute. They don't have them. So we need to keep our rights. And most importantly, we got to take control of the money supply. And that's through gold and silver. That is the only way. And I get hit all the time. If you follow me on Twitter, people follow me all the time. And Bitcoin's the way. Bitcoin is not in the Constitution. It's much easier to get gold and silver done because it is in the Constitution. And yes, we broaden the scope a little bit in our bill with the word specie, so we can cover bars, because if you read Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution, it's very specific. It says coinage, gold and silver coinage. We broaden it a little bit, so we throw in the word species, so we can actually cover transactable forms of gold and silver that are literally marked with weight and purity. So that, for instance, we're a fan of the gold backs. We like those. We like gold and silver coins too. And bullion banks like to do ATM cards that are tied to an account with physical gold and silver in them. We like them all. And the free market has already got solutions for all of this. So maybe we should go into that a little bit.
Yeah. And first, let's take a baby step, because this is a topic that's been very near and dear to the hearts of our viewers recently. And that is the distinction between coins made by the U.S. Mint specifically. So U.S. minted, legal tender status, face value marked coins versus bars and rounds that could come from any private mint, could be U.S., could be outside the U.S., and not legal tender status in any country, that sort of thing. Can you help us understand, and there may be room for different opinions as people analyze, trying to look into the future on what rules might emerge around this, but as far as the constitutionality, as far as the groundedness of the current states that are making sound money or gold and silver legal tender laws, is there a distinction being made between government minted coins versus bars and rounds so that people can position themselves appropriately to be ready for what may be coming?
Well, are you talking in specifically with the Missouri bill?
Well, let's start there. If that's where you're most familiar, and then if you are aware of how this is taking shape in other states as well.
Okay, we do have we do reference a U.S. statute that talks about the size, weight, and purity of coins. So we're referring to that in our bill, in Senator Eigel's bill. But the important point is the incorporation of the word specie and a definition for specie. Yes, U.S. minted coins, silver eagles, who doesn't love those, right? But the fact of the matter is, it's the same amount of silver. It's the same purity on you'll get from a private mint. So we've covered that with our definition of specie. We want all silver. And once again, let's talk about intrinsic value for a quick second here. Because, if you have a silver eagle, or if you have a 1 ounce bar, from the Sunshine Mint, they both have equal value if they're melted down. It's that simple. They truly do. We kind of recognize that in our specie language. So it's important for folks to understand we're not just doing American currency in the state of Missouri with our bill. We are covering all transactable, made to be transactable gold and silver. So I don't know if people say, well, gosh, are you doing, 100 ounce bars of silver? Well, that's really not made to be transactable. But at the same time, it would be under the definition of specie technically. So we even go that far with the definition of specie, made to be transactable. Plus, it's also got to be stamped with purity and weight. That's critical. That's absolutely critical in our bill. So hopefully that answers that question. And I know that the other states are doing very similar language in their definition of specie. So I think that covers Florida, Texas, and New Hampshire as well.
In the United States Constitution and like the Coinage Act of 1792 and so on, when they talk about that our money shall be gold and silver coins, how do you see that there isn't, just as they say, nullity on the face of any edict that comes out of Congress or out of the Fed or out of the Treasury or whatever, saying, no, you have to use this or that to transact in legal tender if it contradicts the Constitution? That must be part of what you've been arguing all along with your Constitutional Money Act.
Yes, that's correct. And once again, the word specie is critical here, folks. Some people are not familiar with it, but basically there's, specie basically covers virtually any let's just say, as far as gold and silver goes, anything that's truly marked and is verifiable for weight and purity. So, but if it's marked with weight and purity, generally it's made for transactions. You're not going to find dolomite bars, coming out of, First Majestic, with, stamped on that dolomite bar, like 700 pounds, and then, 80% pure. It's maybe 90% pure, the dolomite bars. So that's not what we're doing here. The fact of the matter is we do have to be kind of specific with this, because if it leaves too much room, too much wiggle room, stuff like that will start happening. And we don't want problems like that. Literally, it's just giving people another option. And it's important to point out that not only does the Missouri bill, but also I've looked at the bill for Florida, by the way, I have seen it. We are not taking away the option to the dollar. The dollar is still there. So this will ride right alongside the dollar as another currency to be able to use. And we should go into, before too long. And by the way, the Specie or the Coinage Act and everything, we're in compliance with that, but we've added a wiggle room for specie for privately minted, stuff that's made to be transactable. So we have covered that, and so has the folks at Citizens for Sound Money. But at any rate, I'm sorry. It's like I keep pushing you on this, but because I get questions all the time, how do we do this? How does this even work? How is silver and gold actually transactable in the United States? It's been too long. People aren't used to it. How does it, actually function? Why isn't the store taking gold and silver right now? Because it's still legal to do so. Yes, we can answer all of those questions, but I'm going to take a breath and I'll let you, basically tell me which one you want first.
Yeah, that's exactly where I wanted to go, because we get that question often from not so much from people who have been accumulating sound money for decades. Those people, it makes perfect sense to them. They know what they're doing, they know why they're doing it. And it's kind of like everything else that seems to come out of Washington or Brussels these days is it's insane on its face, and you wonder, why could anyone? It's upside down, it's backwards. They're calling white black, black white, up down, and it seems to be so many of the things that come out are not understandable. You say, how can this be good for families? How can this be good for individuals? How can this be good for the next generation? How can this be good for the financial strength or the freedom of our country? So a lot of the things that come out of Washington are upside down, but this is something that seems right side up. It's like, well, if you do give up part of your life's work to earn something, you should be able to save it and carry that value with you into the future to use at a time of your choosing, and or to hand it down to the next generation. And it's only in the last few generations that we've become kind of like the Pied Piper, leading us away from what is natural, what is real, what is sound, what is been accepted as the standard for millennia, and instead trying to accept substitutes for that, virtual substitutes, first paper, and then electronic forms that make it easier and easier to be manipulated, and harder for us to put our feet on the ground and say we own something. So I guess that's where I wanted you to start, if you would, because so many people are concerned with how would we're not familiar with that anymore. We used to just swiping our piece of plastic card at the grocery store or something like that. That was unheard of 20 years ago. So we've become accustomed to using substitutes rather than the real thing. And frankly, carrying around a lot of gold and silver coins could be either heavy, or you could say, gee, I'd be susceptible for robbery or something if I was trucking that around. The store doesn't accept it today anyway. So people do ask that question. How would we actually go about transacting in an economy where we want to use gold or silver as the basis, because that's sound money? It has all those intrinsic good aspects. It's not a subject to inflation, et cetera, et cetera. It's more private. And yet do it in a form that's reasonably convenient, and people could actually carry on their lives. You've looked into that to some extent, and you said there's free market solutions that would help with that.
Absolutely. And I'm asked all the time why that's not included in the bill, the free market solutions we're about to get into. And that's because I think Senator Igo believes that the free market should be handling transactions for gold and silver, not the government. There are certain regulations, I think, that will be necessary over time, but I think for the most part, the free market's got this. So let's start with one more thing. And let's just go back to 1913, when the Federal Reserve came out. We had coins in the United States up until 1964 that contained silver. They were 90% silver. So silver was already monetized. It was part of the monetary system. But we had gold coins too. And those were like, roughly 20 bucks. Might have been $20.67 or something like that. But they were essentially 20 bucks. And the coins were easily accepted at stores at the time. But you go back to 1913, I don't think anyone was worried about, fake silver and gold coins at the time. We do have that problem today because of, good old China and others that are making some fake coins. So let's start with the easiest one to cover, which is actually carrying coins, which some people may not want to do. So please hang on if that's not what you want to do, because we have solutions for you as well. Coins can easily be verified with a Sigma device or something similar. And so they can be verified for their purity, and a small digital scale can verify weight. So if you have a gold coin, and if you go into the hardware store and you're buying a washer and dryer, basically you give them a gold coin, they can verify the weight and purity. And for the other side of the free market solution, bullion banks already have this done. What they do is they set up a website, and they set up what's called APIs on the website to pull in the average price, including the premium, from multiple online reputable dealers. And then they actually aggregate that price for an average price. That is what the bullion banks do. And that's what any state can do. Any enterprising individual can do that. This is not something we want the state of Missouri to do. We prefer, private enterprise get involved and advertise on that site, because holy mackerel, it'll be worth a lot of money. No matter what state you're in, just think about that for a second. So opportunity, right? So that's coins. So using coins, but there's also gold backs. Okay, so that would be kind of on the coinage side. Gold backs are very popular. It's like carrying cash. And once again, it is stamped with weight and purity right on the gold back. So you've got that covered now as well. Specie gang, that's how we get the gold backs, use the word specie. And so you've got coins and cash in a sense now covered with your gold foil. So now we'll move into other transactable, versions of gold and silver, and electronic is a big part of that. The bullion banks have this covered as well, gang. They have been doing this for a long time. I'm going to use, UPMA as an example, but there's a bunch of them out there. It's not like I'm trying to tell you, which is the best. I'm not. So with UPMA, you set up an account, and you can either deposit, if you have a branch in your area, physically bring them silver and gold, put it in your account, and you can spend it because they'll give you an ATM card that has direct access to that gold and silver that works on the MasterCard network. So there you go. You're now at the grocery store using an ATM card where you can spend your gold and silver. But you don't have to do it that way if you don't want to, because you can literally, if they don't have a branch in your area, and that stands for gold money, whatever, you simply wire actual United States currency to them, and they will transfer it into gold and silver for you. Or they'll just use it, leave it as cash if you want. And once again, you've got that ATM card that's linked directly to that account. You can go ahead and spend it. Easy peasy. The same way we do things now, we can do actually, with gold and silver. And I imagine at some point you'll be able to write checks if you want to out of a gold and silver, bullion bank account. So all the options are there. Everything is there. Everything we can do with cash, we can do with gold and we could do with gold and silver. The solutions have been sitting in front of us this whole time. You won't hear that from Washington, D.C., though, because I don't know if you knew this, Dunnigan, but apparently gold is a barbarous relic, right? The Eastern central banks tell us different, though.
Yeah. The other 2/3 of the population of the world doesn't agree. And the other thing that we get told is that they only be used by criminals for criminal activity. I can imagine that there's an overlap there in the excuses for the Second Amendment attacks that have happened, as well as the attacks on sound money. Can you talk to us about what you've come up against on both of those realms when that excuse is used by those in power, that we have to take away your freedom in the name of public safety?
Okay, gold and silver. The arguments against it were mostly, and by the way, this is, kind of the narrative part. I'm paraphrasing here. So the exact arguments are the Democrats in Missouri were afraid of Nazi gold getting into circulation in Missouri. And I'm ashamed that I didn't know that there were Nazi coins, but I didn't. They knew something that I didn't, and apparently that offends them. But I have found out that there are Nazi silver and gold coins, but those are in collections and in museums. Those aren't in general circulation. So that was a big problem for Democrats. Actually, Republicans really didn't have a problem in Missouri anyway. In Missouri, didn't have a problem with the bill. They liked it until someone added crypto language to the bill. Then it became offensive to some Republicans in Missouri. We have this year on our bill, we've put a incorporated subtitle for the sole purpose of, to make sure that that doesn't happen again. But as far as Second Amendment, one that I really remember, when we were doing the Second Amendment Preservation Act in 2021, the same gentleman, Democrat, that was complaining about Nazi gold on the floor of the House in 2023, in 2021, was saying that the Second Amendment Preservation Act would actually defund the police. And we do have a mechanism in there to sue anyone who takes away your right to the Second Amendment without due process. And so he used defund the police. The Republicans wanted to defund the police. And that was astounding. Go back to 2021. That's what the Democrats wanted to do. So a Democrat was actually accusing Republicans of wanting to defund the police. And that was their hidden intention, was to sue them out of existence. So that was probably the biggest argument. And I'm sorry, it wasn't even an argument, but it did take floor time. And if you want to, our website is easy access to our socials. So, and by the way, if you're in Missouri, please sign up to our email list to help us fight for gold and silver in the state of Missouri in the year 2024. If you're in other states, I will ask you to look up Citizens for Sound Money, another outfit like the Missouri Freedom Initiative that is trying to get sound money legislation done in multiple states across the United States this year. Or I say this year, I mean 2024. So there are other people working this as well. Join forces. If you have them in your state, join forces with them. If you're in Missouri, join forces with us. And let's get this across the finish line. This is incredibly important legislation.
Could you hit maybe the top couple of points for our viewers, many of whom are new to this, on why you see it so important for states to pass legal tender laws and legislations to make sure that silver and gold are properly protected as valid forms of money in the states? Why is that so important?
You bet. First and foremost, on my socials, I get hit all the time. We already have gold and silver. It's in the Constitution, so we don't need to do this law. This is just another overlapping law. What we're doing is we're asserting our sovereignty in the state of Missouri to be able to use gold and silver as legal tender within our state. Now, when you do legal tender, that does several things. It hits several mechanisms. Number one, the state recognizes it as transactable money. So the state's already there. But the second part that we did in our bill is that we're telling the state that they must take gold and silver for payment of taxes or services if offered by the taxpayer. That does something, that mechanism now has actually gone into high gear. When the state is accepting gold and silver for the form of taxes, businesses are much more likely to start transacting in it. And that is really a big one for businesses because they can pay their taxes in gold and silver at that point. But once again, we're not just talking physical here. Electronic versions of gold and silver are acceptable in our bill, and also in all the other states as well that are going with the Citizens for Sound Money. So that is the most important point. Number one, legal tender. Number two, of course, getting your state to accept gold and silver in the payment of taxes. But also, too, a really important one is a depository. And we're going to get into the importance of why this needs to be done. A depository in your state is kind of like having a central bank in your state. And it's the people's money, and it's real money. It's not that fake funny money that's losing value. Keep in mind, most states do have reserves, and they hold on to most of those reserves in the form of treasuries or bonds. Those both are losing value. So the people's money, the money that you pay taxes with, sits and loses money, and it is your state pension fund. Basically how your state actually pays for, the highway. How your state pays for everything that your state does. And they're doing it with something that's losing value. And the point of this is your state has no control at all over the value of said treasuries and bonds. You don't. This is the Federal Reserve and, of course, the federal government. So since your state has no control over the losing of value of what we currently use as currency in the United States and the bonds that are used and often traded in between banks, and sometimes even probably reserves traded between other states for payment to other states. I think it's a real good idea for that to be hedged just like the average person would in their 401k, in their IRA. I mean, I don't know anyone that, me personally anyway, that has an IRA that doesn't have at least 10% precious metals in it. I mean, everyone does that. That is a good hedge. Some people say, well, I hedge with bonds. That used to be the hedge. Well, during a hyperinflation, that's not going to help you out very much, my friends. When you're in a big inflation, that's not going to help you out. Even if we go into a slight deflationary period, don't get too excited, because banks and governments do not do well in deflationary environments. They will print money to get out of that deflation. Trust me. I know the mechanics and how this works. So these are the important issues. A depository in your state is critical, but I'm not sure we can get that done in 2024 in Missouri, though, unfortunately.
If people want to, learn from what you have already done so that they can encourage their representatives to take similar actions in their own states, or B, just want to learn how to support what you are doing, where should they get plugged in? You bet. Our website, mofree.org, is the best place to go. We're updating information as quickly as we can on there. We actually do have a blog on there, which covers the emails that I send out every Saturday morning. But being on the email list is actually critical during the legislative session if you were in the state of Missouri, because sometimes we get actionable information that we have one day to act on. Because sometimes we work this really hard in the state of Missouri. We are plugged into the politicians. We know what they're doing. We work with them all the time. So if there's actionable information that needs to be done, it's done by email. And this is during the session, which starts January 3rd. Also, for those of you in Missouri, we have what we call a knock and shock operation on January 9th. That is a physical operation that we do up in the Capitol. We literally go and talk face to face with legislators. So this isn't a rally or anything else like that, and in large groups, by the way. And we basically go ahead and talk to them about the silver and gold bill, and we're rallying support for co-sponsorship in the House. So this is a very exciting. It's a lot of fun. If you've never been to the Capitol before, please consider joining us on January 9th. The details will be on our website. That'll be going up by the end of this weekend, by the way. So that way you have time to plan. You got a month, basically to plan a little bit of time to visit the Capitol in the state of Missouri, which is in Jefferson City. Well, Patrick Holland of the Missouri Freedom Initiative, I just have to thank you for doing what you're doing, because so many of our viewers are concerned. They're concerned for their own selves, their own family, their own community, their children, their grandchildren, and they would like to be able to make a positive difference. People have been criticized for being hoarders who just gather up gold and silver and hunker down and try to, it's like Noah building an ark, trying to just be able to outlast what storms may be coming. But at the same time, there's this the desire and the fire in people's hearts to make their community and their state a better place, and to stand up for the constitutional rights that they already have given by God, and that were protected, supposed to be protected by the Constitution, protected by government. And they don't know what action to take to be most helpful. By people doing what you're doing, is sharing, here's what you can do, giving very specific, actionable things that people can do to encourage their representatives, or that they can do personally to make a difference. So mofree.org, MoFree, Missouri Freedom Initiative. And that's where you want to go, folks, to get out more information from Patrick Holland and the Missouri Freedom Initiative. Remember, we'll be talking to Senator Bill Eigel from Missouri next week on specifically his bill that he's introducing to carry forward this in the Senate of the Missouri State House. And then it sounds like there's multiple sponsors of similar bills in the House, so things are looking positive there. We want to have you back to talk more about, as you mentioned, the Second Amendment protection as well. And so we'll have to do that in our next visit. And just thank you for joining us on Liberty and Finance. Thank you very much for having me, Dunnigan. By the way, we should have some news on the Second Amendment Preservation Act next time we talk to you, because we're going into the 8th Circuit this month. Excellent. Glad you're doing it. So important for all of our freedoms and for upholding our duties under the Constitution to make sure that we pass on a free constitutional republic to our children and our grandchildren. So thank you, Patrick, for being here on Liberty and Finance.
Thank you, Dunnigan. God bless you, man.
Miles Franklin Precious Metals is one of America's oldest and most trusted bullion dealers. Miles Franklin is A+ rated and accredited by the Better Business Bureau, licensed and bonded, and has 0 complaints ever registered. Here at Liberty and Finance, we are licensed brokers with Miles Franklin. To order, simply call us, discuss your needs, and we can let you know our live inventory, prices, and availability, and lock in your order over the phone. Once your order is locked, the price is held for you regardless of market fluctuations, and the metals are reserved for you awaiting your settled payment. Within 1 business day of ordering, you will receive an email invoice detailing the order and payment instructions. Miles Franklin accepts payments by bank wire, ACH or electronic check, money order, check mailed priority mail, and cryptocurrency. The fastest forms of payment are bank wire and cryptocurrency. Upon settled payment, metals will ship out within 3 to 5 business days. You will receive tracking information via email. Domestic shipping charges are $15 for any order under 500 ounces of silver or 10 ounces of gold. For orders larger than that, domestic shipping is free. The package will be boxed, fully insured, and labeled discreetly, with no indication of the contents inside. For your privacy, the name Miles Franklin will not even be on the package. To talk to myself, Kaiser, my brother Elijah, or my father Dunnigan, call 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237.